Hey everyone, you're listening to the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And today we have a very exciting episode. We're going to talk about the exciting conversations of bourbons and wines and all types of spirits. We have Sarah Walters with us. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Sarah, you have a beautiful shop in Monmouth here, Market Alley Wines.
Thank you. We're pretty proud of it.
You should be. I love getting to come visit. You have a wide selection of wines, craft spirits, as well as craft beers, and a just beautiful venue in there. So you've done a good job with that. How long have you had it?
Well, the business itself has been there since 2011, believe it or not. I have owned it since 2017. So going on 6 years now, which is hard to believe.
Does it feel like one or two?
Pretty much. It feels like yesterday that I started, but then also it seems like an eternity, kind of like a marriage. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
You're like, but yeah, it's good. So we've been very lucky. The woman who started it, she kind of took a risk, obviously, in Monmouth, Illinois. People think, a wine bar? Who's going to drink wine and pay money to drink wine? Well, she proved everybody wrong. And I don't know what it is about the place. I get it all the time. People come from everywhere. It doesn't matter if they're Chicago or LA or California. It doesn't matter. They'll say, we don't have a place like this where we live.
Yeah.
So I don't know what about our place is so special. Part of it, I think, is the paint color. Honestly, it's very soothing and warm and inviting. We don't have any TVs. It's kind of a place you come and connect instead of everybody on their phone or watching the games or whatever. We don't want that. We want, when you come there, we want you to sit like we are and just chat and have a good time. So I think all those things put together, plus then we have a pretty darn good selection of wine and beer and bourbon and tequila and vodka and all the, So I think all those things make it what it is.
It's a good place to hang out.
It's a great place to hang out. And a lot of people call it their third place. I don't know if you've heard that term, but, your other place that you go for your, relaxation, your entertainment, it's their third place. And a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice, too. We have a lot of like single women or widowed women that will come in and feel comfortable coming in, because even though we do serve drinks, we're not really a bar.
Yeah.
We're more of a gathering place. And so they feel comfortable coming in there by themselves. And I always tell them they're never going to be alone because I'm always there. So they'll always have a friend when they come in. So I think, there's just all those little things make a difference, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, they have two friends. Bruno.
You
have a Frenchie that goes everywhere with you.
Oh, yes. He was kind of mad when I didn't bring him today because he's missing his chance at the spotlight. But
it would have been our first dog on the podcast. We could have had
that we could have had him. Yeah. But we'll come back. Bruno. Yeah. He has become he is our mascot now. He is. I swear to God, I never knew I could love an animal as much as I love this dog.
Yeah.
I had a dog for 13 years that I loved, but nothing like this dog. He is magical, and he's that way for everybody. I mean, people will come in expecting to see Bruno, and if he's not there, they'll be disappointed. They'll say, "Where's Bruno?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, he didn't come today or whatever," but he usually comes with me every day, and he loves he's a French bulldog, so he doesn't have a tail. So they are famous for their butt wiggle because they can't wag their tail. So they wiggle their butt instead. So when people come in, he's just wiggling that butt. So
the Frenchie just took over the number one spot for dogs in America.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that a couple weeks ago.
And the golden retriever, which is crazy.
Yeah. Does Bruno drinks wine too?
Yeah, he probably would if I would let him. I'm one of those strict parents. I don't let him drink alcohol. He's not 21 yet.
One of my first experiences at Market Alley Wines was, and this was pre-COVID, but there was a gentleman that would come and bring like board games from other countries.
Yes.
And so people would all gather and no one knew how to play.
Right.
Except for maybe him.
Exactly.
And so you'd be playing some game from Poland or from Brazil, or that. It was so random and fun.
It is so fun. So that's Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
game
they're
night.
still doing
so it's
that?
It's never. It's only stopped during COVID. That was
Right.
the only time it stopped. It's been in continual
That's
existence.
awesome.
So it's on Tuesday nights. It's open to all. It's from 5 to 7. And
we gotta go.
Craig Vivian. He's a professor at Monmouth College. He's he's the chair of the education department. Really become a great friend of mine. Honestly, when I think about my time at Market Alley Wines, there's been a lot of wonderful things, and meeting people has been one of the top for me.
yeah.
I'm a people person. I love people. So to meet new people, and he would rank up there in my top 5 of, I never would have known him had I not had the wine shop. And I consider him a great friend. And so he comes.
That's awesome.
And he has, at his house, I don't know, he probably has, I'm going to say like 300 games. And they're all different. They're board games, or, so it'd be kind of like you're playing Monopoly, but it's not Monopoly. It's some of them you have to think, some of them you partner up, some of them, you're trying to sabotage other people. They have this one called Saboteur, and they love that one. Mm-hmm. And it gets really loud when they play that game, because there's someone that's trying to, sabotage the group.
The whole group,
and
yeah.
you spend the whole game trying to figure out who the saboteur is, and so it gets really loud and crazy. But
so how cool! Have fun with some strangers, meet new people. You're
That's
playing
nice.
a game that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Have a drink or two.
It is. It's fun. People love it, and like I said, it's open to all. So he walks in every week with 2 big bags filled with games. And then he just sees who is there. So if there's only 3 people there that night, then he'll find a game that's best for 3 people. If there's 12, then he picks accordingly. So it's really fun.
That's
and they
cool.
definitely, there are regulars that come every week, and they definitely have their favorites and all that. So it's super fun. Sometimes I have to go like this because they get a little loud. So I always tell people, if you're not in game night, go sit in the front, because they get a little excited. But it's good. It's great. We love it.
Good.
We love it. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. We've been able to do a lot of fun things like that, that just kind of make it different, I guess, and make it a place. Well, people ask all the time on the college, they ask, do we get a lot of college students? And I have nothing against the college students at all. And we do have some, but we really don't. We get more of the staff and the professors, which I prefer. It's a lot less potential for debauchery.
Right.
And we close at 7, which is another crazy thing that people can't understand. They can't believe it, but it has always closed at 7.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
just...
And people usually go to other restaurants to eat, right?
Exactly.
I
They
mean,
leave, then they go to Alfano's or to Patent Block, or to one of the Mexican restaurants. I mean, it's kind of a perfect. We call ourselves the pre-party, because we're there till 7. It's not a hard close. It's not like we lock the door at 7 o'clock, but we have live music on Friday and Saturdays. So when the music stops, people just kind of know, okay, it's time to move on and go to the next place. So
Well, that's the best bet. I've always said, if you're gonna own a bar, I mean, a lot of you always hear like nothing good happens after midnight. So if you have a place, you can have it successful, have some fun, get your pregame, if you will, and then
and we open at noon.
kinda
So
go on out.
I mean, we're there from noon to 7. So there's plenty of hours to come in there. And really, honestly, if you're coming after work 5 to 7, that 2 hours is plenty. I mean, and then you move on to the next. Yeah. And so I never probably would have bought the business had it not. That was a big drawing point for me, because I'm not old, but I'm getting old, and I don't want to be out till 2 a.m. every night. No, thank you.
Sarah, have you always had an interest in spirits and booze and wine, even prior to deciding to buy the venue?
So that's kind of what helped make this possible. I was a teacher first. That was my profession. I was a teacher for 17 years. And then I left the teaching profession for personal reasons. And then I was kind of like a fish out of water. I didn't know what I was going to do, because that was what I was born to do. And so my wonderful friends at Mod Specklebellies were opening. And I didn't know those girls at all. But I was totally intrigued with what they were going to do. They
Cute
had the
store.
paper on the windows and guess what's coming and all this crazy stuff. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is this place? Well, I stalked them and asked them if I could work for them. And they were like, well, we don't really need anybody to work. We don't even know what we're doing yet. We don't really need anybody. And I was like, okay, well, if you ever do, I can unpack boxes. I'll do whatever. I just, this place is so cool. So they called me one day. And again, I didn't know them at all. And they said, did you really mean that when you said you would work here? I said, yeah. So they said, well, good. We're going to Chicago. So here's the key. And if you have any problems, give us a call. I was like, what? Wait. So that was and now they are, it's just Jamie now, but Jamie and Aaron are probably two of my greatest friends, and it was the biggest blessing. So that then led me to realize I loved retail. I used to work back in high school at the Limited, so I kind of had some retail experience, but I love people. And then the wine shop came up for sale, and everybody wanted me to buy it, and I had no interest, none, because I don't know how to run a business. I'm not a business person. I'm a teacher. Math scares me to death. So numbers, I was like, I can't run a business. I don't even understand how you do a spreadsheet and balance and all that stuff. So nope. Well, I don't know what happened, but one night I just looked at my husband and I said, maybe I should think about this. Because leading into your question, the long way around, my dad has been a huge wine connoisseur for probably 30 plus years now, kind of a self-taught expert, and built a wine cellar in his basement and has just, really fallen in love with it. So basically, since I could legally begin drinking, I've been drinking wine and learning about it from him. And so it was kind of a natural progression, I guess. And so that part, I felt confident. I knew I loved people, so I had that part figured out. I love wine, so I had that part figured out. It was just the business part that I had to figure out. And so I thought, well, I'll just get a good accountant, and I said, just make sure it's always black, not red.
Yeah.
And then and it's worked out. And, so now I feel like, having never taken any business classes, I'm surprised that I own my own business, but you just learn and you figure it out, and you make mistakes, and then you pick yourself up and you learn from those and you move on. So,
well, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
Exactly.
Or you're not doing enough, venturing out.
Sure.
So good
Absolutely.
for you. You've done a great job.
Well, thanks. It's kind of like teaching, really, in a way. I mean, I think about that all the time, how I really am still teaching, because I can teach people about the different styles of wine and teach them about bourbon and tequila. And so it kind of is the same thing, just now I get to drink on my job instead of grade papers.
Right.
So actually it's worked out really well.
Do you enjoy wine?
I like wine.
Red or white or both?
Only red. Yeah.
I prefer red myself. I'm yet to come across a Sauvignon Blanc is okay, or a Riesling.
I like Pinot Noir.
I can have about the only whites I can have. But other than that, I like all the reds.
Yeah. There's so many good ones. I just opened one the other night. It was a Syrah. It was a blend of a Syrah and a Petite Syrah. Oh my goodness, it was so good. Yeah. It's so good. It's by this winemaker Schaefer, and I mean, it just so good.
How do you guys find the wine that you guys have there? Is that like, you mentioned your father, John Toomey. We did a documentary for him. Yeah. He has
That's your dad?
That's my dad.
Yes.
That's my dad.
I never knew that.
That's my dad. And he's 99.
Yeah.
He's going to be 100 in September. And he's
I didn't know that was your dad.
Spry as
you need to see his basement.
Yeah.
Like a lot of
so
wines.
Victor's seen the cellar. How they he's taken labels off of bottles for 30 years. And that, so like if you went to his house, he would take the label off the bottle and write on it, Lauren, and the date, and then he puts it on his wall. So his walls are nothing but wine labels because he's been doing it for 30 years.
You could be there for hours. He'll be like, I drank this wine with this guy. Yeah. This was in 19 something. Yes. I was this place and drink wine with this
his
person.
memory is incredible.
That is awesome.
So that's my dad.
That's cool.
So
he's a great guy.
He is.
Learn something new every day.
And then I was gonna ask you if that influence from him was what made you like wine, and also how do you guys find type of wines you guys have?
I did grow up. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of people have a misconception on wine. They think that it has to be expensive to be good. And it really doesn't. Yeah. It really depends more on where it was from, the year it was grown, what the conditions were like, in that time. So it really has more to do with that than the price. I mean, some people have earned a reputation, I guess I would say, to be able to put a hefty price tag, like Caymus. Let's use that one, for example. Everybody knows Caymus. They've created people know if you buy a bottle of Caymus, it's going to be good. Yeah. And you're going to spend money on it. But there are so many good wines that are inexpensive. And so I learned that. And I think that's helped me tremendously, because I think, trying these wines and learning, it's more about the grape and where the grape grew and what the conditions were like. And some years they're really good, some years they're not so good, and that's going to make a difference in the wine. So that really helped me a lot, learning that from my dad at a young age. It's helped me in this business. This business is a little different. It's been fun. I've been able to teach my dad, I think, a little bit back at, because he's used to vintage. Vintage matters. The year matters, especially if you're going to keep it, if you're going to cellar it. It really matters. Well, in my business, it's more about drink now. So it's not really about, is this a 2019? This is more just like, this is a Cabernet and it's a really good one. And it's made, so because wine has become so popular, they've realized that. And so they're still making good wines to cellar and to put away, but they're also making good wines that you can just drink right now, that don't have to sit and wait to mature.
Does it make sense to say that the older it is, it's gonna be better taste or not?
Sometimes, most often, yes. But it depends on the quality. It depends on the grape, when it was, and how it's been kept. So if you keep it on your kitchen counter for 15 years, standing straight up, it's not going to probably be very good. Okay. It could be, but it would be a gamble.
Your cork will be dry,
right? That's why they lay them down for that reason, to keep the cork moist. So they typically say, and there's all sorts of different opinions on this, but on average, like 52 to 56 degrees is like optimal storage temperature. Okay. That's why you'll see a lot of, cellars, they're underground, and that's just the normal temperature that it goes. But then they make these coolers and things you can put in your basements or in your rooms, and you can have these refrigerators. So if it's stored properly, and it's good quality, and it came in a good year. Yeah, I mean, my dad has some wines. He got in the habit of doing birth wines. So whenever somebody was born, he would buy their birth wine, and then he would cellar it until they were 21, all of his grandchildren. And then on their 21st birthday, he gives them the bottle and they share it. So it's really cool. And then he did it with his kids too, so yeah, I mean, he's got wines that have been in his cellar for 35 years. Yeah. And so you can keep wine for a long time if it's done in the right conditions. Okay. So yeah.
One thing I remember about your dad is that, well, first, he's 99 years old, right?
Right.
And he drinks a glass of wine every night. Yeah. So maybe that's the secret.
Yeah, I think that's part of the secret. Yeah, I'm going to believe that it is anyway.
Another thing, and he said every time he's going to drink wine, he gets a plastic bottle, he puts wine in there, and he kind of squeezes it to take all the air out of it and close, and then he's going to drink this wine tomorrow. Yeah. So every day he does that and drink the next day. Why does he do that?
So you can buy the fancy tools out there where you pump the air out. We do it at the wine shop at the end of the night to keep it for the next day. So he's doing the same thing. So what's kind of cool is it's twofold. So when he pours the wine into the bottle, he's aerating it. Because a lot of wines, when they get that air, it kind of opens them up, a lot like bourbons, So it opens it up and releases the flavors and the nose and all that. Then when you get it in there, then you squeeze the wine clear to the very, very top. So you've now taken all the air back out and you've preserved it. So then once you do that, you can keep that wine for months in this water bottle.
Oh, man.
And so
I felt obligated to drink the whole thing this whole time.
Exactly.
I'm like, I can't waste it.
It hardly ever happens for me either. Do I have to use that? But it does work. And what's cool about it is I show people all the time at the wine shop, teach them that trick. Because when you're traveling, especially if you're driving, throw those in your trunk. And when you go into your hotel at night, you've got your wine. You don't have to take a bottle. You don't have to have an opener. And it will last. We even tried it once. We did an experiment. Somebody had given him a really nice, expensive $300 bottle of wine and said, I want you to share this with your kids. So he did. But he also wanted to share it with the gentleman that gave it to him. But he was gone. So Dad said, I'm just gonna throw that in the water bottle and I'll put it downstairs. And when he comes back, then we'll drink it. So it was several months, probably 5 or 6 months went by before he was able to get back with that gentleman. They opened that and it was better than it was the first time after it had sat in this water bottle for 6 months.
That's crazy.
So the whole it is crazy.
We're learning all types of stuff today.
I know. So don't go spend money on those crazy fancy stoppers and
or finish the bottle because you didn't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I tell a lot of single people when they come in, they'll say, well, I don't really want to buy a bottle of wine because, it's just me and so I don't really want to drink the whole thing. So I tell them this trick. And then I said, then you don't have to worry. If you just want a half a glass, you can. Now you might have to use a couple bottles because you've got a little more wine, but that's okay. So it's a great way to preserve wine. It really does work, honestly.
Interesting.
And then you can label it, you can write on there. So it's cheap. I mean, So
one question I've always had with wine, I have no idea if there's any truth to this, and hopefully you can help me. On the bottom of a wine bottle, I've heard the deeper, you put your thumb or a finger in there. I've heard the deeper the hole, the drier the wine.
Well,
is there any truth to that?
I don't know if there's truth to the drier. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, me neither.
I do know that there are some. I think it does have to do with the way that it's bottled and the way it's going to mature. You don't see that very often unless it's a more expensive bottle. So I do think it has something to do with the preservation of the wine, because you're probably going to keep that wine a little longer.
The deeper
that it is. But I don't really know the answer to that. We'll have to Google that.
Well,
we'll have to find out.
It's something I've always wondered, and I find myself walking around the wine shop and I'm putting my thumb in there and seeing, and I don't even know if it's doing anything.
There is kind of a cool thing on the flip side of that you can see too. So I don't know if you can tell, like here, between the cork and where the bourbon is, there's space.
Yeah.
So that's called ullage. And so this is important in wine. If that is, usually with wine, you're only going to see maybe about that much, maybe a little bit more, but about half an inch maybe. Mm-hmm. If you see more than that, good chance that wine is no good. Because too much air has been able to get in and spoil that wine. So when you're looking at a wine that has been sitting there, like you said, how long can I keep it? If you have a bottle that you've had for 15 years down your basement, look for that ullage and see, because if it's more than about a half an inch, I would definitely still try it, but there's a really good chance that it's probably not going to be very good because too much air has gotten into it. So that's kind of over time. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And is it a thing? So like there wasn't that much ullage, right?
Right.
Maybe, and then 2 years down, you look at it again, and there's more.
And there would be more. So that would be telling you that there's that cork has been, the integrity of that cork has been damaged some way somehow.
You better hurry.
Too much air is getting in there.
Put it in the water bottle.
Right. Yeah. Because honestly, because it doesn't want the air. So you got to get that air out of there.
Right.
And if it's continually able to seep in through the cork because the cork has been compromised or whatever, then it's like I said, it could still be good, but it would be a gamble. You would be ready to spit it out maybe.
Yeah.
Sarah, what was the most premium wine that you've tried in your life?
Oh gosh.
And tell us about pricing as well and why that was a premium one.
So, a lot of wine for me is more about the experience and the story than the price tag.
Okay.
I have been able to try a lot of really good wines with my dad, because and if he were to sell them today, they would be worth a lot of money. But when he bought them 30 years ago, he might have bought them for $18, $20 a bottle. Now it might be worth $300. So he's really big on, it's called Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And so they're from France, the region, and it's the wine of the Pope. So Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it's the wine of the Pope. Okay. He loves those, and understandably so, they're excellent. Châteauneuf-du-Papes tend to be a little bit pricier, maybe in the 50 and up range. So I definitely like Châteauneuf-du-Papes. I've been able to have a couple, like there's this one called Raymond, and it's got a velvet label. So it's a beautiful bottle, and it's great wine, and then it's got a great story. Again, all my stories somehow kind of find their way back to my dad. It was a wine that he shared with his sister when she was ill, and when she would get good reports, they would share that, and then they actually sent him a big bottle, so that one's a really good one. There's so many. I tend to like. There's really not a variety that I don't like. I'm not a huge Sauvignon Blanc fan, unless they come from France or California. If they're New Zealand, which is what most people like, I don't care for them as much. I'm kind of a weirdo. But other than that, and sweet wines, I'm not real big on sweet wines. I like all wine. I love Syrah. That's one of my favorites. Grenache is another one of my favorites. I have one at the wine shop right now that's a blend of those two. That's one of my top favorites. So I have a lot of favorites, I guess, and not one that stands out. It's always fun to try the expensive ones, just to say that you did. Yeah. But you know, if you're tasting them side by side, you would be able to tell the difference. But if you're not, then they're all good, you know? Yeah. So for me, it's more about the experience and who I'm sharing it with and the story and all that. So
you talked about different locations. Would you come up with like a top 3 locations that have the best grapes?
Well, France, of course, I would say is probably ranks up there. California would probably argue with me and say they are number one, but French wines are pretty spectacular. Okay. I would say for me, that would be my top pick. And then probably California. And then I really like Argentina too. They make some great, you know, Malbecs and so, and Spain and Italy. I mean, you know, there's Portugal. I mean, there are so, and the nice thing for us is those wines are really inexpensive. So you can get some killer red Portuguese wines and Italians and Spanish. And so those are, you know, but I would say French is probably my favorite. And I think arguably the world would probably say that, you know, they kind of have pioneered it. But now, I mean, they're making wine in China. You know, they're talking about how global warming is maybe starting to affect even wine because, you know, it's all based on the parallels and how the sun shines and all the different climate. And now that that's changing, places like France are starting to panic because their vines are not growing like they should be. And now places like England and China and other places, now they're starting to come on and say, oh, wow, maybe we can grow grapes. We never have been able to. We didn't have the right climate. So there's a big shift. They had a big expose on that on 60 Minutes a couple months ago. And it was very interesting because it's, you know, whether you believe in global warming or not, I mean, something's happening. Some things are happening. Yeah. So
in Portugal, there's a tradition of them drinking wine with seafood and eating fish and stuff like that. So I was going to ask you, is there any type of food that would be the ideal to drink with red wine or white wine or some of the good combinations?
Sure.
Tell us about that.
So obviously food and wine definitely go together. Yes. Just like beer and food. And you know, you can pair any drink with your food. So traditionally seafood is best served with a white wine just because of the acidity and all of those things. So typically you think of more of a white wine when you're going to have seafood or a lighter styled, you know, like a Chianti or a Pinot Noir or something like that. I'm kind of the odd duck out probably, I guess, on that. I think that you drink what you like. Yes, is it going to enhance the flavor? Absolutely. So if you're having a, you know, big juicy porterhouse steak, you might want a big hearty cab with that, and it's gonna be the best pairing. But if you also really love Chardonnay and you're having that big porterhouse steak, then drink the Chardonnay. You know, that's kind of how I am. But I'm kind of the odd duck out on that because food pairings are important. That's why you'll see even on a lot of the bottles on the label, they'll actually say goes great with fish and salmon and pork chops or whatever. So it's a real thing. I just don't let it guide me, I guess, as much.
I used to work at a kitchen and wine bar in Scottsdale, Arizona called Tapino's. And it was a wine bar, and then we had tapas, which is like the small plates.
Yes.
People always think I say topless. Oh. I had tapas bar.
You worked at a topless bar. Yeah.
No,
of course
it was
you did,
tapas,
Lauren.
but we very much had to. We'd come in on Sunday when the restaurant was closed. The staff we would try the food coming, the tapas that were going to come for the next week, and pair them with some wines. Yeah. And it was cool to get to come in on Sunday, not only learn, but you're like, shoot, we're getting food and wine.
Drink and eat for free. But it is true. I mean, and that's just it. It is true. And I probably would do it more if I had a restaurant,
right.
Because then it is important. I just went.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't.
You
I
close
at 7. I'm not going to add food.
Yeah,
we
don't
have
do that.
Cheese and crackers. That's as far as I'm going to go. But have you guys been to Craft in Galesburg?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was lucky enough to. It was a business dinner. It was, this job does come with a lot of perks, sure. I will say, and this would be one. And so they had the president of Goose Island, the beer, came down, and so Kraft created a 6-course meal and paired it with their beer.
That's nice.
And I'm not a beer drinker per se. Like, I just don't like beer, but I'll tell you what, it's amazing. When they paired that food with that beer, it was so good. So, I mean, there is so much truth to it. I just typically don't worry about it. Right. But I think, but it is huge. I mean, but they made dessert. The dessert, I have to tell you about the dessert. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So they have a shandy, Goose Island, and so they made a lemon sorbet with the shandy, and then it had strawberries and like a homemade shortcake crumble thing on top. And then Chris, the wonderful Chris.
Yeah.
I love Chris.
He's good.
Oh, he's such a great guy. He spun cotton candy. He made a sugar with the shandy beer. Did you see this?
This was just a week or two, a couple weeks.
It was.
I saw this. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And he's a good friend of ours. And so he was, he's like, I thought that was going to be easy to make cotton candy because I had it in my beard all over the place. I had to make 2 batches, but it was so good. And so they bring this sundae out, and it's got this stick with this fluffy yellow cotton candy, and you felt like you were 12, and everybody at the table was. I mean, they're just like, oh, cotton candy. But so it does. Food does make a difference, So it would be nice. Maybe I could pair up with some of the local restaurants here and suggest some wines for their food.
I think for a long time, humans have used food and beverages, not just alcohol, but food and beverages as a way to gather and bring some camaraderie and be able to laugh and just enjoy ourselves. And to me, I'll spend some money on food and alcohol and not think twice.
Totally.
My kids will want a board game at Target, and I'm like, that's $20. No way.
No way. Go buy those cards.
And then me and Victor go to dinner and drop $60 and not think twice, So I kind of laugh at myself as a father.
Right.
I'm like, what the heck did I just do? I told my son no for $20, and then I dropped 60 without a blink of an eye.
Yeah, but that's good. You're teaching him now, and then when he gets older, then he can make those decisions.
If you still want a board game at that age, go get it.
Go get it.
But no, I get a kick out of that.
So let's talk about bourbon, about whiskey.
Oh yeah.
Talk a little bit about food and whiskey.
Okay. Do you like whiskey?
I drink sometimes.
I know he does. I don't know where I'm looking, but I know he does.
I don't think I could say that I like whiskey if I mix whiskey with something else, right?
Okay.
Because I think whiskey lovers are the ones that drink only whiskey, right? But I like to mix it with some energy drink or something.
Okay.
Right?
Yep, which is fine. Yeah. It's kind of like the food thing.
Actually,
again.
not with energy drinks. We should not say that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
You should not
Disclaimer.
Mix with water.
Not mix alcohol and energy drinks. Just to let it know.
Do not do this at home. Isn't that what they say? Do not. We are professionals.
Right.
Do not do that at home.
But
so it's whiskey. So I've learned a lot about whiskey. I didn't know anything about whiskey 6 years ago.
Okay.
When my reps would come in, that kind of goes back to a question you had earlier. In Illinois, you have to buy from distributors. And so they'll come and bring samples a lot of time. That's how I find a lot of the wines and the bourbons and the tequilas and things that I have. They'll come and I get to taste them. So 6 years ago, when they would come in with these, I was just like, yeah, it tastes like lighter fluid. I mean, if you think it's good, just tell me it's good and I'll buy a bottle and see if it sells.
Right.
Because I had no interest in it at all. I would try and I could never get past it. So then I had a rep come in one day and he said, I'm going to teach you how to drink whiskey. And he did. And ever since then, I love it. So
I need that guy.
I know. Well, I'll be that guy for you. I'll teach you. So, because a lot of it has to do with getting your senses ready for what you're about to take. Because a lot of these, like this one, I don't know, this one's 90 proof, so that's not so big. But some of them are, 120, 130 proof. That's a lot. That's pretty powerful. So your senses are not ready for that. And if you just take it, your senses are like, whoa, oh, gross, hot, burn, yuck, awful. So you have to kind of get yourself ready. So you smell it, you bump it to your lips, you put a little in your mouth. They call it the Kentucky chew. You get some in there and roll it around. And all of those things are going to be awful. But you're getting all your things to kind of settle down. So that when you are ready then and you take it, then you're like, oh, okay. So still that first, I don't know for you, that first sip is always usually still a burn.
The hardest one.
Not anymore. No. To be honest, not anymore.
It's like water.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I could take a shot and not show a face or anything.
Yeah.
When I did the Bourbon Trail, so we toured not all, we didn't hit all of them, but I think we went to 6 of them.
Yeah.
And that's what changed it for me. I was always a gin drinker until I went to Bourbon Trail, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna be trying these bourbons, not too excited, but it was cool. The tour of the distilleries was amazing. And then they give you these like real cute chocolates with the pecan on top to like clean your palate after. Oh my God, I'm like, can I have another one of those chocolates? But yeah, I think kind of what you said, once someone sits you down and kind of the same thing, they talked about it, you take a little bit and like do that.
Like
and
mouthwash.
When you do that, it like, you talk about your senses, like in here and everything, just the flavors and aromas all just pop.
You do the same with wine too, right?
It is. Yeah. It is definitely.
Yeah.
That's why you see people sniffing and swirling and putting some in their mouth and, almost chewing it.
What's the reason for the...
That's just to open it up, to swirl. When you swirl it, you're going to open it up, kind of like when you pour it in the water bottle, you're opening it up, getting all those flavors and all those smells and everything.
I like to see too, Sarah, when you're doing that, like you'll notice some wines will, I don't know if thicker is the word, but will stay on the glass and move down slower,
They call those legs.
Legs, okay.
If you'll hear somebody, they'll say, ooh, look at the legs on that.
Right.
They're not talking about me. They're talking about the wine. No one in the history of the world has ever said, look at those legs when they're talking about me, ever.
It's probably got said once or
Carrie
twice.
Underwood, yes, not Sarah Walters.
Yeah. But no, that's so funny. But yeah, so that was what I thought. Once someone really helped you understand, and one thing that blew me away at the Bourbon Trail, when it comes out of the barrel, it's like a high alcohol. So they have to like kind of cut it and get it in order.
Yep.
The best of the best will be able to take a drink, and most of them don't actually drink. They don't drink alcohol, but they will do the rinse around, spit it out, and they'll tell you exactly, like to the point of what the alcohol percent is. They're like 107.
It's
112.
Crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
And then
they
would
call
test
those barrel strength. So some people really like that. Like I do. You probably do. The higher the proof, I have learned, the better.
Right.
Because you get those flavors. Because it's so crazy, and it applies to wine too, how the barrel makes all the difference in the world. And so that's why, they use certain trees and depending on where the tree grew and all those different things. And it's crazy how that wood can extract flavors of caramel and, smoke and leather and tobacco, but it does. And when you learn to drink it and accept it, then you start tasting those
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Like I never thought I would be able to go, oh wow, I taste the caramel in there.
Yeah.
You know,
That one, oaky. Yeah.
oaky, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how our senses work.
The best part about the Bourbon Trail, I'm sorry, had you done that before? Yeah.
I did, yeah.
So like when you pull up to a distillery and you get out of your car, there's this aroma in the air that you're like, sweet dear Lord, what is that?
Exactly.
And they call it the angel share. But yeah, they have thousands of these barrels full of bourbon in these big warehouses, and some of it is evaporating in the air, and you can smell. There's so much of it there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they say
It's
that's
like
the
this
share for the angel
yeasty,
share.
yummy. Like when we came back from the Bourbon Trail, our car smelled like the yeasty.
I would sit in
angel.
your car.
I know we
I'm not getting out.
Well, we laughed because we brought so much back with us that we laughed. We'd get out and go get gas wherever we get back in the car. We were like, whoa,
Yeah.
we smell like a distillery.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's a great time.
It
You
is.
get to learn a lot.
It's such a great time.
Well, let's talk to, because you brought these in. Bourbon craze blew up a while back. So everyone is chasing these low allocation, highly desired, like Blanton's and, those of the world. And they're like, we can't ever get them. So
Right.
they're not. And then in the meantime, there's new, just as good or
Right.
equal bourbons that are hitting the market. And a lot of people may not know about them. More affordable and more easily accessible.
Exactly.
So why
And,
don't you hit on some of these that you brought?
Kind of goes back to what you said too. It's a marketing thing, and they've done an amazing job.
Totally.
So kudos to Buffalo Trace and Sazerac and all these places that have taken their product
Happy
and
Van
made
Winkle.
everybody want it. And that's basically what they've done. I mean, in some ways, I will give them maybe just a little bit that the bourbon craze has become a bourbon craze. So in order for you to make it, it has to sit in a barrel
Right.
for 4 years or more for
Right.
it to become, whatever it is that they're, like this one is a 10-year. So that has to sit in a barrel for 10 years before they'll put it in a bottle for you to drink.
Okay.
So obviously,
Gotta wait 10 years.
Did they plan well enough? I don't know. Cause they've gone through Prohibition and, so many distilleries were gone when Prohibition hit because they couldn't survive. They, they couldn't make their product unless they were smart enough and innovative enough to make it a medicinal thing. So that's why there are a few that have made it and have been in continuous operation even through Prohibition because they were able to, say, oh, this is medicinal. This is for medicinal purposes. So they were able to keep making it.
Well, that's still why I drink it.
Right,
It's pure
exactly.
medicinal.
Pure medicinal.
Yeah.
I agree. But yeah,
Painkiller.
but part of it is just it's a marketing thing. They know now that there's this boom, and they know everybody wants Weller, everybody wants Pappy, everybody wants Blanton's, E.H. Taylor, and they all the ones that they want tend to come from that one company, which is Sazerac. And so, I personally believe, because I've seen it go in the last 6 years, they are definitely holding on to bottles so that they can keep that supply and demand very current.
Very much.
Because I know it's out there. We can't get it. We every once in a while, I've seen it change in the industry, which I hope for the people that are watching this, they'll understand. I can't even order it anymore.
No.
They won't even let me order. So I used to be able to order it and say, I'm just going to take Weller, for example, because I like Weller. So we used to get Weller all the time. No problem. And then it slowly started to where, you can only get a case. You can only get 3 bottles. So now I can't even order it from them. They'll just send it when they want me to have it.
Right.
So I don't know that it's coming until my delivery driver walks in, and I'll be like, oh, I got a Weller today, and I'll only get one.
Yeah.
And then the kicker is they charge me a split case fee on that bottle because I didn't buy a case.
As if
I'm
you
like,
had a choice.
Excuse me.
Right.
I like a case, but you won't sell me a case. So it's a crazy business, and it gets really frustrating on my end because my husband's a big bourbon lover too, and I know a lot of people think he gets all his bourbon from us, but he doesn't. He goes and stands in line at raffles too because we can't get them. Yes, he has been able to get bottles from time to time, especially 4 or 5 years ago before
Right.
this craze hit.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, he's standing in line at Hy-Vee just like everybody else, you know, because because we're so small. You know, it's that philosophy of the big guy always wins. We're the little fish in the big ocean, you know. So places like Hy-Vee and Unclaimed Freight and Benny's and all those places, they're the whale.
Well, they still get them very rare.
Then they get them very rare.
I think I got a bottle of Blanton's about 3 weeks ago in Galesburg. Complete luck, right? I mean, like you said, you almost just got to walk in.
You just have to,
and check out. I was like, you have some of that? Like, and they did. So, I mean, it's not normal. And then you walk out of there like a kid who just
just got a board game. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I know.
So it was incredible. Very lucky.
Yeah. It is.
But yeah,
it is
once
crazy.
again, I spent $70 on that and told my kid no on the $20 board game.
That's all right.
But whatever. I'll try to step that up.
Hopefully he doesn't listen to this, so he doesn't even know that you're doing that. He has no clue. But yeah, it's crazy and it's frustrating. But
so let's hit a couple of these.
So that's why I brought these because there's so many great bourbons and whiskeys out there that people are missing because they're all they want. They come in and I can tell, of course, being a small business, I know if I'm there every day. So if you walked in, Victor, and I had never seen you, I would know that was your first time there. And they want to know if I have anything in the back. Well, no, I don't, and I wouldn't want them to get it anyway because they're just looking to buy the bottle so they can flip it online and sell it for 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount. But they're missing a lot of really great bourbons. This Old Elk is phenomenal. So this is the wheated one. So Weller is wheated.
Yep.
So to me, that Old Elk is just as good as Weller. Now it's a little more. It's expensive. It's $70.
But it's accessible.
Right. It's on my shelf every day.
Right.
It's so good. So we're lucky too, being a bar. We can pour it, so we sell a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because
let them try
it's
it.
really good. Yeah.
So here's a cask strength one that you had mentioned. Yeah. So it's saying 118 proof. Yeah. This one is gonna hit you with a bite.
That's gonna hit hard.
You just want to care for it.
You wouldn't at first. You wouldn't if you tried that right now. You would be like, oh, until you get yourself used to receiving the bourbon.
You got Bardstown, Kentucky.
So that Bardstown, up until till this series now, it's called Origin Series. So a lot of places source their juice. They call it juice. A lot of them source it. So because they don't have enough, so they have to buy some. There's a Indiana called MGP. You probably have heard of that. So it's a huge sourcing warehouse where a lot of people will buy the whiskey from them and then bring it back to their place and mature it. So there's a lot of whiskeys out there that are MGP based. So Bardstown is a really cool place too. If you ever get a chance to go down there, their facility is amazing. They've got a great restaurant. They sourced a lot of theirs while they were waiting for theirs to mature, because it's kind of like back to this Russell's, it's got to sit in that barrel for 10 years before they can put it in the bottle. Now this is their first series that is completely theirs, that it's all been on their property, all, processed from them, distilled by them. So that's their Origin Series. This one is their Bottled and Bond. Bottled and Bond is always going to be 100 proof. That goes back to those early days again, kind of prohibition time where people were making whiskey and they were taking their chew and spitting in there to turn it brown, and people were getting sick and all those things. So they had these bondsmen that would stand at the rick houses and make sure that everything going in there and coming out of there was legit.
Right.
And so the Bottled and Bond is 100 proof. And so anytime you see that on a bottle, it's going to be 100 proof.
Okay.
So this one, they have a regular one, but I love the Bottled and Bond for Bardstown. It's really good. It's really good. So yeah, that's a new one. Uncle Nearest is kind of a cool one. That was it's a nod to the first African-American master distiller. And so this is their Uncle Nearest. That's kind of new on the market, and people are loving that. good stories behind that.
1884.
Yeah, decent price point. 45, it looks like. So yeah, not bad.
Yeah, and that's so you can get some really good ones that don't have to be,
Right.
super expensive.
Yeah.
Some of them are, and a lot of that depends on what they're putting in it too. Ryes tend to be more expensive. I think because rye as a commodity, I think is just more expensive. So that's kind of how that goes. This Russell's is $42. That's a great one. 10-year. I mean, a 10-year. It's really good.
Now we can go full circle here too, Victor. Have you had any wines aged in the bourbon barrel?
No.
Aren't those? I
don't know.
No.
I come in and look. We've had some. You can get them. So they started when the bourbon craze started taking off. They realized, okay, we have these bourbon barrels. What can we do with them? So wine. We're like, hey, let's grab. We'll age our wine in a bourbon barrel. Gives it a little of that higher alcohol too, because it absorbs some of the barrel.
And it definitely gives it a deeper woody, oaky
it's good
flavor. Yeah,
smoky.
I
have one at home. Maybe it's
You should
a
pop
red
that
wine.
open.
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay,
you'll like it, and it usually packs a little higher punch.
Yeah. They do that with, now everybody's collaborating. So beer is, like Goose Island that I was talking about. They're huge. They're
Bourbon County
Stout.
Okay.
They put those in bourbon barrels, and then they collaborate with people like E.H. Taylor and Blanton's, and use their barrels and put their beer in there. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then they market
Vodka's
those really
doing it.
well.
Yeah.
They release it one day a year.
Yeah.
It's on Black Friday. Black Friday every year they release this beer, and people are lined up outside
and
places
they'll only
to
let you
them.
buy one bottle, and it's usually like $20. It depends on what it is, but
the
it's
variants.
one bottle. And you only get one,
and the store may only get 20 bottles. There's 50 people in line. So
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Do you think they do that
just
Do you think they do that just to increase the demand, and then they control the pricing, which means that they'll raise the price?
Yeah, and they did that. And actually, I want to say it was about 3 years ago, they kind of started having excess. You started seeing in the stores, you're like, you would never see this on the following Monday.
Exactly.
Ever. And now you'll see it for 2-3 weeks afterwards, because they started mass producing and overpricing.
Yep. You have to be careful, because I think a lot of times people get greedy in this business.
Yeah.
And you can't get greedy, because when you get greedy, then you just shoot yourself.
And once you shoot yourself in the foot, you can't drop your fight. Oh, come back.
Right.
No, you tried to gouge us.
Right.
So.
I know.
I don't like you anymore.
I don't like you anymore. No. I'm done with you. I know.
This has been a ton of fun,
Oh,
Sarah.
it's super fun.
I hope
Thanks
you
for
enjoyed.
asking me to
I know
come.
you got to get to the shop. So
I have
thank
to
you,
go
though.
open. Yeah, thank you guys. I love what you're doing, and this is so fun. And
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
thank you.
I love anytime we can talk about food or alcohol, or really talk to anybody.
Exactly.
You know that. I
Exactly.
appreciate it. I will bring him to a Tuesday night game night.
For sure.
Yeah,
We'll
you
go
guys should
there.
come.
I didn't know
need
it
to
was
go.
still going. I would have been there.
It's going strong. Yeah,
And
it's fun.
one time before we cut out, can you hit me with one sipping Saturday, baby?
Oh yeah, well yeah, that's fun. So you have to say, the drill. We start at noon. Say it with me now, people. It's Sippin' Saturday, baby. Thanks,
Victor
you guys.
didn't know nothing about that. Thank you so
Victor,
much,
get
Sarah.
on my Facebook and watch.
Okay, I will.
You guys, thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed the great episode. Sarah Walters with us on the Talk About It podcast. Hit subscribe and keep tuning in every week as we continue to have fun with amazing guests like Sarah.
See you guys
here.
next week.
Lauren Fulmer,
Thanks.
Victor Dantas.
Talk About It podcast. Thank you for watching this episode of the Talk About It podcast.
I'm Victor Dantas.
I'm Lauren Fulmer.
And we would encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell. It's going to be right below the video. So
Hit the bell.
So you know when the next episode is up. All
We
right?
appreciate all the support.
Thank you.